I'm here to introduce Dr. Clay Marsh, and Clay just said be merciful and keep it short. I literally could do a 15-minute introduction of Clay in terms of all the exciting things that he is doing right now, but he is a Vice President for Research in the Medical Center, Associate Dean for Research in the College of Medicine, and Director of the Center for Personalized Health. So we're really excited to have Clay here today to talk about Blue Zone. So Clay, take it away.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks for showing up today. Whoa, I'm projecting. So what I'd like to do, I don't have slides, so you can thank me for that, is to make this really interactive. And what I'm hoping is to give you guys some thoughts on what you can do to sort of live the life you want to live. And I'll tell you about some of my insights on maybe what health is, and I'll talk about the blue zones. Who knows what the blue zones are? Okay, so the blue zones are what? Places in the world
where people live long.
People live long and well. Long and well, okay? And how many of us would like to live long and well? It should be everybody, right? Exactly. So I'll tell you a couple of stories, and I'll get into some of the things that I've learned and maybe some things that you can use too. So I had the pleasure of meeting a lot of really interesting people. And Peter Shields is one of the people I've met recently. And I don't know if you guys know Peter Shields or not. Peter is now the Director of Research for the Cancer Center for the James Cancer Hospital. We recruited Peter from Georgetown, and he is an expert in cancer prevention. So I don't know about you guys, but the first question I asked Peter when I met with him was, how do I keep from getting cancer? Right, of course. And his answer was, that's easy. What did he say to me?
Good job.
Don't smoke. Don't smoke cigarettes. And I said, okay, I gotcha. Don't smoke cigarettes. I said, okay, what else? And he goes, wow, that's a lot harder. And he's thought for a minute and he goes, I know. Live a balanced life. So I'm sitting there going, okay, this guy is a national expert in cancer prevention. We recruit him from Georgetown. I asked him the simple question, and his answer to me, live a balanced life. So I look back at him, I go, okay, do a little better than that. You know, I'm a little disappointed, you're a smart guy, that is too generic. And he goes, well, you know, he goes, what I know is that if you take a bunch of vitamins, like mega doses of vitamins for cancer prevention, oh, you get more cancer. If you have fun, have great social connections, if you eat healthy, if you exercise, those are all really good to prevent cancer. So he goes, I think that's right. Live a balanced life. You know, and I thought at the time, oh my gosh, I think he's right. Our bodies are more complicated than we can ever appreciate. And if we do well in healthcare, I think what we do for you and people do for me is you allow people to remain balanced or in homeostasis. And in fact, blocks in that. Age is sort of, too little repair, and cancer might be too little differentiation. So I actually think he's right. Live a balanced life. So if we go from living a balanced life and then go to the blue zones where people live long and well, there's really 4 secrets to the blue zones. And I want to bring this back to another story here in a second. But the 4 things that are really important to living long and well, and this goes back to a conference I went to, which I was in Silicon Valley, a lot of smart people, venture capital people. And I remember 2 statements by one presenter. That's it. That's what I remember. And the one was that if we want to cure chronic disease, we have to cure aging, because chronic disease is just aging of organs, which I think he's right. And the other thing he said, which I think is actually more true today than I did at the time, was that all the important things that we'll discover, your grandmother's already told you. You just haven't figured out she was right yet. And it is. The stuff that makes sense is probably right to us. And I'm going to talk about what I mean by that. So the 4 things in the blue zones are 1, exercise. Okay? So I asked you a question because we're all caught up with BMI in our society. Is it better for your longevity to be thin or to be fit? Is it better to be fat and fit or thin and not fit? Fit. Fat and fit is better than thin and not fit. In fact, in some settings, thinness is associated with worse outcome. right? Think about people with cancer. Think about people with chronic lung diseases. They're really thin. They're not very healthy. And so you want to be fit. So fitness, and people in blue zones tend to move normally. They don't go to the gym. They don't go to run a marathon. They walk. They bike ride. They exercise because that's the way they get around. Okay? Number two is they eat different than we do. Oh, surprise. A friend of mine, Gary Tobbs, who's a writer, wrote a book called Good Calories, Bad Calories. He's a scientific writer, really smart guy, and he went just to look at all the information, all the research studies about why America's fat. Why is America fat? So who knows? Why is America fat? What's that? Processed foods. That would be very close. Sugar. That's even closer. And the reason, and we'll get to that. But people say, okay, we're like a sedentary culture. We don't move around. We eat too much. So his argument when he went out was, yeah, we eat too many calories in, we don't exercise enough. But in fact, as we exercise less and take less calories in, our body stops burning calories as quickly. So it's not just too many calories in, it's the wrong calories in. And what he found was, and this is now backed up by the USDA, and this will go back to Peter Shields, my friend, the cancer prevention guy, in a minute. So it turns out how much sugar, processed sugar, on average, do you, the average American, eat in a year, in pounds? Who wants to guess? 139 pounds per person in the U.S. by the latest data from the USDA. 130. Why is America fat? 139 pounds of sugar per person per year. There's a really funny video on Saturday Night Live. Look it up, and it's entitled High Fructose Corn Syrup. High fructose corn syrup. So what are the two crops farmers grow today? Corn and soybeans. And every product from gasoline to plastics to sugar is produced by these two crops. And so basically corn is a staple in our country. Our animals are fed corn, read Michael Pollan's stuff. So the bottom line is that we eat a ton of sugar from the food that we buy. Not the fresh food we buy, the packaged food we buy, the fast food that we buy. So if you carbon date a chicken McNugget, how much of that chicken McNugget is corn in percent? 76%. 76% of a chicken McNugget is corn. Whoa. Whoa. How many people have ever seen Super Size Me? Really interesting movie, right? So think about this as a concept. Okay, struggling director, not making any money, decides to make a movie about himself eating only McDonald's for a month. Okay, and I'm not going to bash McDonald's. I think this is just a paradigm for what is going on here. And so he has to supersize the fast, and he has to eat everything on the menu at least once. So he goes to his primary care doctor and says, you know, is this going to be bad? And the person goes like, well, it's stupid. You know, I wouldn't do it, but you know, what the heck? Went to a nutritionist, is this bad? Oh, McDonald's is not good for you, but you know, stupid, but it wouldn't, you know, but you know, if you need to do it, probably not dangerous. And he got his body mass index done, he got densitometry, he saw his fat percent, he was dating and living with a vegan chef, so he ate pretty well. And what happened during the movie?
He was sick.
Yeah, he almost died. He gained 40 pounds, and he became unable to exercise, to get up, to motivate. And at first, the food made him sick, and then after a while, he craved it. Watch the movie. It's very interesting. It took him almost 6 months to get back to normal. And people are going, holy crap, his liver enzymes shot up, his fat shot up, and it was really about what he was eating. If you watch people moving from places where there's not obesity to westernized cultures, they become fat. And a lot of that is about what we take in. And the idea is that the reason why sugar, processed sugar, and high fructose corn syrup is a problem for you is because you stimulate insulin. And insulin is a hormone that is lacking in diabetes, in type 2 diabetes, and the kind of the adult onset diabetes, because you can't take the sugar in well, the receptors don't recognize as well, so you actually make more insulin, it just doesn't work as well. And in type 1, like childhood diabetes, you don't make insulin, you have it destroyed. But the point is that insulin is a fat storage hormone, because if you're basically putting away for hibernating winters, you want to store because you're going to use that fat over time. And this is a situation where our bodies haven't quite caught up with our new diets, but insulin secretion, particularly spikes, cause fat to be stored. So Gary Taubes believes, and I think he's right, that obesity is actually a fat metabolism problem, not a calories in, calories out problem. So if you reduce your sugar in, if you reduce the insulin that's secreted, you actually lose weight. And I'm doing that. I'm eating anything I want, but I'm trying not to eat stuff that makes insulin spike up. And I've lost about 8 pounds in about 3.5 weeks. And I'm not really even trying. I'm not exercising more either. I exercise some. But so the point is, I think that there is some solutions for people with obesity, but it requires us to redefine and re-educate about the food we buy and how we prepare it, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so food. So in the blue zones, people eat less. They eat more plant-based diet, less animal-based diet. And there's some actually interesting data about the potential that animal-based diets might cause you to have a higher risk of heart disease and also cancer. And they drink a glass of wine a day, usually red wine. So it's interesting that I'm not advocating everybody go out and drink now, but if you do drink, there is some data to suggest if you drink in moderation and drink the right stuff, that maybe you'll get some benefit. The third thing, which I think is really interesting, is people in blue zones have a tighter connection to their family, community, and environment. And oftentimes people live around each other for a long time. So there's a book that I really love, and it's called Connected. And it's written by Nick Christakis. Nick Christakis is an interesting researcher at Harvard. And the book is kind of redundant, and the bottom line of the book is social networks do everything and are all powerful. So let me give you some examples of that. Nick Christakis did a really interesting study that was based off of a big heart disease study that gave us the ideas about that smoking and diabetes and high blood pressure, et cetera, family history were risk factors for you developing heart disease. It was called the Framingham Heart Study. It was done in Framingham, Massachusetts, a small community, and they follow people forever. So Nick Christakis took this database, and he asked the question that's really interesting. If you had a family member who was fat, first-degree relative, or a friend who was fat, who would give you the higher likelihood of being fat yourself? First-degree family member or friend? Friend. Friend. Wow, that was pretty surprising. 60% likely if you had a friend, a very good friend who was fat, versus a family member. And so it turns out that there's a really interesting researcher that came here from Carnegie Mellon, and he asked this really interesting question, so I'll pose it to you. So the question was, he had this research study where he injected virus in people's noses, right? So he paid you to do it, and then he basically tried to figure out if you got an infection that didn't make you ultra sick, but made you sick from the virus infection in your nose. And the first question was, if you had children, were you more protected from getting sick from the virus infection or not? Children protected? Yes. Okay? Correct. Now why? Why were kids protective, having children protective? And in fact, it's interesting that kids away from home gave you more protection than kids at home, which will make sense in a minute.
It's the bond of love. It's protective.
Okay? So that's interesting, because I would have said that they bring home all the crap from school and everything else, and so I get more resistance because of the crap. But you're exactly right. So it turns out when the kids leave home, they widen their circle of friends and networks, which widens your circle of friends and networks. So the thing that was offsetting was if you had dense social connections yourself, you didn't get the benefit from having kids. But kids deepened and expanded your social networks. Really interesting. So social networks were the reason why you were protected. And there's been a lot of data suggesting that, in fact, so there's another little paradigm. So if you take our community at Ohio State, okay, and you wanted to prevent the spread of flu, okay, if let's say we have a flu epidemic, you would need to immunize 99-point-some% of the people against flu. But if I ask everybody at Ohio State to name 5 people that they thought were really important people here at Ohio State, that really connected with them, and then we got that group of people, which is usually less than a third of the total number of people, and we inject them against the flu, we have the same protection of the population. So these hubs, these sort of small number of people that make the biggest difference. You know, Malcolm Gladwell, who's a really good writer, wrote a book called The Tipping Point. You guys heard of that? The Tipping Point is about what causes social epidemics. And so his idea was, what makes things go viral? You know, like the dog that says, I love you on YouTube. presume some of you guys have seen that. My kids are currently fascinated with the college humor Batman videos. I don't know if you guys have seen those. They're stupidly funny, but anyway, I won't go into detail. But so the idea that Malcolm Gladwell has is really three groups of people that cause social epidemics to happen. Connectors, people that know lots of other people. Mavens, people that you go to find out the right deal, the right place to go, the cool happening. And salespeople, people that will try something first and then go to everybody, oh, you gotta use this. This app on the iPhone is really cool, et cetera, et cetera. So the point is, though, that social networks and even crowdsourcing now, you know, like you look at something on iTunes Store and you find out how many stars it's gotten because other people go, oh, this is really good, influences what we do. How many degrees of separation away from you are you directly influenced by people, and do you influence people? So you know that we're 6 degrees of separation away from everybody in the world. So we are 6 people away from anybody, supposedly. And there's a study that showed that using mail. How many degrees of separation do you influence people directly in what they do or choose to do or like? And how many degrees of separation away from you are you influenced by people? 3, correct. So your friends influence your behavior even if you don't know them. If you intend to give money to a charity, 3 degrees of separation, it makes it more likely that people give money to that charity. So social networks are something that are really powerful and really are being navigated now. And there's some really interesting work in the military about that too, and I can talk about that at some point. Okay, so they're connected to family and community. The other thing is, the other thing that's been found about people in blue zones is that they tend to have more fun. They tend to not live to work, they tend to work to live. And there's a real difference. And you think about it for all of us, that you know our lives are crazy, but they don't have to be so. And in fact, just taking a second to sort of, you know, have your eyes open but see. Let me tell you a little story about a former sort of important person in medicine named Roger Bone. Roger Bone was the dean at University of Toledo, and he wrote 3 articles in the Journal of the American Medical Association. And the first one was called A Taste of Lemonade. The second one was called Another Taste of Lemonade. And the third one, I don't remember the name of it. But I'm going to talk about the second one because it really made an impact on me. So Roger Bone was a guy who was on this internal medicine update. He was like a moderator. He's kind of a famous guy. He's a critical care guy. That's what I do too. And so he moved to be the dean at Toledo. And he found out that he had kidney cancer. And so we went and got the kidney cancer removed and wrote about that in an article called A Taste of Lemonade. And 2 years later, he started having some weird symptoms. And he and his wife went to see about that. And it turned out he had widely metastatic renal cell carcinoma, kidney cancer at that point. And he knew he was going to die. So his second article called Another Taste of Lemonade, and I give it out to people because I think it's so powerful, was published. And he lived on the banks of the Maumee River, which is in Toledo, apparently. And so he wrote about that he came home from work and he took the day off, which he never does. And he took his coat off and he loosened his tie. And he sat down on the banks of the river, and his wife was beside him, and his daughter came home because she found out what happened. And nobody knew what to say, and it was silent. And he said he sat there, and he had never appreciated how bright the sun was, and how acute and intense the smells were, and how he heard the insects. He looked down at the river and saw a single boat moving across the river. And it was so powerful, so powerful. He was lost in that moment. And he thought to himself, wow, this is incredible, incredible. The people I love, this amazing, experience. But guess what? He had that chance to do any day of his life. He just didn't appreciate it the same way because now he knew his life was short. Steve Jobs, when he gave a commencement speech to Stanford, which is also worth reading or seeing on YouTube, amazingly powerful, he said he found out he had pancreatic cancer many years before he died, and he looked in the mirror that day and he said, if this is my last day, do I do the same thing? Because he goes, if you ask that enough days in a row, someday you'll be right. And I think for all of us, we can choose to have our eyes open and see what's there. See the gifts that we have. See the gifts of the people that we love, the things we love to do. Or not. It's our choice. But seeing it is a blessing. Because if you understand how lucky you are while you still have everything available to you, as opposed to only understanding how lucky you are when it's taken away, then you're really, really blessed. And in fact, it turns out that people that survive life-threatening, crazy things like falling out of an airplane and surviving, or being stuck on the ocean for 50 days, or being a prisoner of war in a camp, that ultimately the connecting feature that they all share is gratitude. They become really thankful for the ability to understand and experience this, even though they don't really think they're going to survive it. That gratitude becomes really powerful. And if we all bring gratitude to our own lives, because we have gifts, all of us, that you cannot replace by money, power, material possessions, etc. These are such inherent gifts, but most people don't get that they have until it's gone. And there's lots written about happiness, etc. Turns out that people that survive life-threatening illnesses are far more happier predictably than people that win lotteries. Wow, it's kind of surprising, isn't it? But if you think about it, because you start to understand the stuff that's really important. And people in blue zones do that. So they get the idea that they're there for perhaps a greater purpose. They may have a different spirituality, and they have fun, you know? And it turns out for all of us, if we're positive and happy and optimistic, even with the same stuff happening to us, we might live 7 years longer. And it turns out in the blue zone stuff that exercise gives you 4 years of life, the right food gives you up to 8 years of life, the right attitude gives you 4 years of life, and the dense social connection gives you 4 more years of life. So you think about it, you know, your grandmother's probably already told you that, your mom, your dad. You just have to figure out that they're right, and then it's about trying to sort of adapt how you spend your days and spend your life, and understand it's in your control. So Marty Seligman, who just came here as a positive psychologist from Penn, University of Pennsylvania, wrote this book called Flourish, which is a really cool book. And Flourish talks about resilience. So my other little talk, my little thing, and I'll stop because I want to have conversation more than just talk to you guys, is an experience I have with the Navy SEALs. So Navy SEALs, you know, amazing group of young men, and they came, and so I'm dressed up in my white coat, and, you know, Dr. Marsh, and introduced, and, you know, in all my, whatever, grandeur. And I stand up there and I say, you know, please, if there's anything I say that you don't understand, stop me. And so I start off and I say, you know, you guys are the best of the best, you're really healthy, and a hand went up. I'm sitting there going, okay, what did you not understand about what I just said, right? You know, stop me, but please. And the Navy SEAL raised his hand, he goes, Doc, let's just make sure we're on the same page. We're really fit, we're not really healthy. Really fit, not really healthy. And I thought to myself, wow. And he went on to say, you know, we do risky stuff and like it, drink a lot. When we're deployed, our days and nights are turned around for 4 months at a time. We're really fit, we're not really healthy. I thought to myself, ding, 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 it's right. He's right. I didn't think of it that way, but he's right. And you start thinking about it, and I know a lot of people, you guys already know this, I just kind of figured it out, but you know, there's dimensions to our health, right? There's an emotional dimension, right? How happy we are, how positive we are. There's a behavioral dimension, how grateful we are, how we approach our life. And there's this great framing thing. So how many of you guys have been cut off by somebody in traffic in the last year? Okay. How many of you guys are happy about that? Right, you know, nobody is. You're like, oh my God, what an idiot. So there's this great little story, I don't know if it's true or not, but it sort of makes the point. So this guy goes into a restaurant, and he sits down, he's like, you know, in a bad week, I just want to sit down, have a little breakfast, read my paper, quiet. Starts to read his paper, and he orders, and a mom and 3 kids come in and sit right behind him. Kids are crazy, they're loud, they're all over the place, they're rubbing up against him in the back part of the booth. And finally, he can't stand it any longer, and he goes, wow, I never do this, but I have to say something. He turns around and goes, man, my God, I just want to have a quiet meal. Can you control your children? Can you control your kids? And she looks forlorn, and she looks at him, she goes, oh, I'm so sorry. But we just came back from their father's hospital room, and he just died, and I can't discipline them right now. His frame of reference went, 180, and then he found himself comforting. I'm so sorry, what can I do to help? Oh my gosh, of course you can't, you know. But it was all the same reality, it was just how he interpreted it. It was his frame of reference. And for all of us, we have that ability. We can either say, oh, that's terrible, people are screwing me, you know, I'm getting killed, my God, can anybody just realize some common decency? Or you can say, I don't understand it, but I'll find out about it. I'll be curious. Or it's not a big deal. Somebody wants to cut in front of me, I'll be 10 seconds later. No problem. And a lot of that is your perception of reality, right? The placebo effect we talk about in studies, the 30% effect, is real. It's not fake. It's not like, oh, you know, it's just a problem with the study. It's real because what you believe is your reality. If you record what happened to you and you go back and remember what happened, it's going to be really different. But for you, it wasn't the recording that's real. It's what you remember. That's real. So a lot of what Marty Seligman tries to do is teach people, the same way Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, that you always have the ability to define how you respond to something. It's not what happens, it's how you interpret it and respond. And you are completely in control of that. And so for all of us, if you respond and say, I'm grateful, thank you. Every day I get up and see my family, see the people I love, get to do the stuff I love to do, I am truly thankful, really. I get that. And I'm a critical care guy, I get how thin the line is between I'm good and I'm not good at all. But for all of us, nothing's a given, you know? And I believe that there's much more to this than just being here, and a lot of things that we interpret as important are not. And the real foundational things, the people we love, how we help people, what we do, how we do it, that's really important stuff. And so for me, and hope for you guys, what we want to do, and what Vern's trying to do here too, is create the world so it makes it easy for you to live the life you want to live. You know, City Slickers, have you guys seen that movie? Billy Crystal, Jack Palance, right? So Billy Crystal was on this, you know, fact-finding, personal, you know, purpose mission, and he asked Jack Palance, who's this, you know, really rugged cowboy, what's the secret to life? And Jack Palance says this one thing, and he dies. And Billy Crystal goes, what is it? What's the one thing? Oh my gosh, he's about to tell me the secret to life. And to me, that one thing is whatever's important to you, whatever your true north is, what your purpose is. Because once you've set your true north, it's our job to help navigate, to help you get there. To introduce the opportunities here at Ohio State and beyond so that you can live the life you want to live. And it's not about being healthy, quote unquote, to meet somebody's standard. It's about being able to do the things that are the most meaningful to you in a way that you know, it's meaningful and you define. Because it really is about empowering you with the right environment. And I'll say the last thing here is how many people own a Newton or even know what a Newton is? It's not a fig Newton, right? Newton's an Apple product, and it got replaced and updated into a similar product called iPad, right? Most people know what an iPad is. So the Newton was a very sophisticated tablet PC, personal computer, but it absolutely failed. And the iPad is a personal computer that's a tablet that's, you know, selling like hotcakes. Why is that? Why would the Newton not sell, and why is the iPad selling? So if you don't own an iPhone, you don't own what? The apps. The apps. There's a world to live in. It's not the hardware. It's the iTunes store. It's the internet. It's the cool stuff you get to do. It's the flashlight app. It's the games. It's whatever you want it to be, and it's whatever is cool that you can share with your friends, because it's not about the hardware. It's the ecosystem. It's the world you live in. So for us, we're trying to create these solutions, because if I tell you to change and do something, you're not going to do it. Right? There's a formula about change. It's called D times V times F is greater than R. So I'll explain, because nobody does it. So to change, and this is a guy named Becker who created this, it's dissatisfaction with the present, it's evidence of finite information that can help you do better, and it's a vision of what could be. And that product, that times that, has to overcome the resistance to change. So the easier we make it to live in a different world, to eat better food, to exercise more, to have fun. By the way, the other thing I didn't say is, if you sleep less than 6 hours, which is probably a lot of us in the room, and you change that to more than 8 hours, the evidence suggests you'll lose 10% of your body weight just by sleeping more. Well, that's kind of a good deal. Plus, you might feel better, too. So at the end, it really is about making it easy and making it sensible to live in a better world, and not to tell you to change because we're going to guilt trip you or because you failed, but to help you get the ingredients to live the life you want to live. That's our commitment. So anyway, that's really what I have for you.